Hello! Come with us on a tour of the famous Picard Bell Foundry in Annecy, France, to witness the casting of the largest swinging peal of tuned bronze bells in the whole world, a peal that is destined for Toronto, Canada. Bells can live forever. In past centuries, however, bells were not precisely tuned as they are today. They were merely cast and then hoisted into the designated tower. The old bells have a proud tradition and a rich history, so we want to preserve them. And we can do this by incorporating their metal into newly cast and precisely tuned bells, thus assuring the continuity of the tradition and the eternal life of the old bells. Although there are new electronic methods for striking bells, the preferred method is still the old time-honored tradition of playing the bells by hand with expression and intonation done by a real carillonneur. So too are the traditional techniques of casting bronze bells still the preferred ones in the world-famous Picard Bell Foundry. For more than 200 years, the Picard Foundry has cast thousands of bells, including numerous carillons and peals of bells for churches, colleges, and municipalities all over the world. Some of the most famous of these are the 50 Liberty Bell replicas, one cast for each of the Capitol buildings in the United States of America. The Joan of Arc, which weighs 10 tons, was cast in 1950 after its predecessor Joan of Arc, which was cast in 1919, was destroyed by fire in the Second World War. 100 years ago, the great-grandfather of Pierre, George Picard, poured the largest bell in France, a bell of almost 40,000 pounds called the Savoyard, which is now installed in the Sacred Heart Cathedral in Montmartre in Paris. Now let's look at these traditional casting techniques, still used today, to cast this largest swinging peal in the world. This peal is composed of 3 bells, named Stephen, which weighs 19 tons, Anne, which weighs 10 tons, and Daniel, which weighs 6 tons.
Tu vois, c'est dans ce cahier que
The notebook you see here contains the Picard Secrets of Bell Casting Know-How, passed from father to son for 7 generations. We use it every day, to be sure. The note of a bell is determined by the form, its geometric dimensions, its height, and its thickness. Here we are designing the profile of the bell, which determines the desired pitch. These traditional techniques allow us to fabricate the most musically acclaimed bells in the world. Part of the continuing tradition is to add custom designs and inscriptions to each bell. These inscriptions are determined by the donor. The decorations are relatively thin in order not to alter the tonal quality of the bell. On a bell as large as this one, the wax is no thicker than 1 centimeter. The original design of the decoration is made of modeling clay. It will then be cast in plaster as a reverse image, after which it will be cast as a raised impression in wax. To begin the molding of the bell itself, a core made of bricks covers the refractive mixture of clay, creating the interior form of the bell. This core holds the false bell, made of sand and strengthened with rope, and on which is added the inscription and design in wax. This false bell represents the exact volume of the real bell. The false bell is then covered with liquid wax to allow easier separation from the exterior mold. The exterior mold is made of refractive clay with hemp fibers for strengthening. Here we can see the elements we have just prepared. 1. The core which creates the interior form. 2. The false bell which has the inscription and designs in wax. And 3. The exterior mold now encased in its metal cover. This entire assembly is heated so the wax can melt and be absorbed by the clay of the exterior mold. The exterior mold is then lifted off to break the false bell away, leaving that space for the metal to be poured into, becoming the actual finished bell.
Tira un po' antipelato, antipelato. Montati pe. Montati pe.
The wax, now melted out, has left its imprint in reverse in the exterior mold. This mold is then put back in place on the core, and the metal will take the place left by the false bell which has been broken away. Packard bells are cast of bronze, an alloy consisting of 78% virgin copper and 22% virgin tin. Sometimes, as we have seen, historic bronze bells are recast or broken into pieces which can be included in new casting. But always prior to recasting, sufficient tin is added to the alloy to assure a perfect mixture and a harmonized ensemble. Now metal is loaded into the furnace, and we wait for the temperature to climb to 2200 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, the metal is still mixed by hand using a wooden paddle, so the ash will disappear or be skimmed off later.
Allez, celui-là, vous le mettrez. Regardez. Là. Le bébé avec moi, ça va. Il est chaud, hein? Hein? C'est chaud. Non, mais tenir le cap. Allez, pas la chaud. Pose-le, pose-le. Attention.
Optical measuring of the heat of the metal confirms the exact temperature, which is paramount to the success of the casting. It takes 23 hours to heat the furnace, melt the metal, and pour 25 tons of metal necessary to cast this largest bell called Stephen. Wow, that was fast.
5 minutes, 9
Yes,
secondes.
the pouring itself took only 5
Maintenant, on va
minutes and
attendre
9
un mois.
seconds. Now we have to wait 1 month for the bell to cool. The most difficult time of all is the waiting after the casting to see if the entire process has been successful. The hardest part is always the waiting to see if the bell is good or has to be recast. And waiting a month for a 19-ton bell is a very long time. It was difficult to wait so long to greet the newly cast bell. But first it has to cool, then it must be cut from the mold. The core must be broken out, then the bell must be cleaned and taken out of the large metal casing. After all this waiting, the moment we have longed for has finally arrived.
Peccato sta transando.
Wonderful. The bell is perfect. Break out the champagne. Our knowledge and experience, combined with exact calculations, allow us to determine the note of a bell from the moment when the order is written. The final note has to be adjusted by cutting out tiny strips of metal from inside the bell. And the bell is a musical instrument which is tuned only one time in its entire life. The casting of this peal of 3 bells, as we have said, the largest in the world, took us 1 year and a half of preparation. We are very happy to see this successful conclusion because the casting of such large bells is truly very difficult. And we are especially happy to say that the 7th generation of Picard bell founders participated in casting. When this film was originally made in 1986, no one envisioned the casting of the Millennium Bell in December of 1998. The Millennium Bell casting required 3 years of our work, the renting of a ship propeller foundry in Nantes in order to find furnaces large enough to hold and melt 75,000 tons of bell bronze. We needed the cooperation of 2 entire staffs to complete the project, and 1 American from Kentucky with the idea that a bronze bell was the best way to greet and mark the importance of the arrival of the millennium.